Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. We are doing this today on Valentine's Day. If you're listening after the fact, doesn't really matter, because no matter what, love is in the air, or should be. And it comes in many different forms. And with that, love is also connected to a story. Think about that. Any relationship, any act of loving kindness, there's always a story connected to it. How can you use those stories to your benefit? How can you share them, whether it's personally or professionally? We're going to talk with a storytelling coach today who helps people with this all the time, but we're going to change it up a little bit and look at it through the eyes of love. She is Michelle Cutler. She's back with us. How you doing today?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you? Happy Valentine's Day.
You beat me to it. I was just about to say Happy Valentine's Day. Isn't it interesting that when you think of anything love connected, there really is a story there in everything? I'm trying to think of a situation where there wouldn't be a story, but there always is. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was actually reading something I had posted on my Substack 2 years ago on Valentine's Day. And I realized I sort of honed in on this idea of the perfect slice of toast, like a golden slice of toast, because my partner of nearly 20 years had bought me a toaster for right before my birthday, is right before Valentine's Day. And when we were earlier in our relationship, we had this no appliances for gifts sort of rule, like we should never lose the romance of our relationship and start buying appliances. But the toaster was like in response to something that had been plaguing me, which was our toaster was burning toast all the time, and I wasn't doing anything about it. I was just swearing about it. And I love toast in the morning. And he surprised me with the toaster, which just changed the whole mood I had in the morning. And I thought how much this person must love me to know this thing, that sort of mundane thing that was lacking in my life, right? It doesn't have to be overly romantic. It doesn't have to be flowers. It's just the fact that I was heard. And to me, I realized that, again, there's the story. We're talking about a piece of toast, and then it becomes something really about, your relationship, the value of hearing each other in a relationship.
And the title of the story would be This Relationship is Toast, but it's really not.
Right, exactly. Read on to find out more.
Exactly.
Although you bring up a great point about titles. Titles can do a lot of the narrative work if you're writing short stories or you're writing short form. The title can do so much for you too.
I love my toast perfect. I toast English muffins, usually over bread. But if we want to dig into this just as an example, I find it interesting how bread toasts much faster than an English muffin. And when I put the English muffin in, I don't have the patience because, I'm making something else. I'm making coffee, tea, whatever. So I will just reach for the setting on the toaster and pop it up to see if it's done yet. And then it's not done yet. So then I have to start the cycle over again. But I can't do a full cycle because now it's going to be overdone. So now I have to babysit my toast. It's funny. There's a story in everything. and I did it just this morning.
You're describing like a huge part of it sounds trivial, but there's so much there in the idea of tension. You're waiting. It's the watch pot never boils idea, but I totally get that. And you could, in a way, turn that into a metaphor about love. You could turn that into a metaphor about something you want in life, something you're aspiring to achieve or aspiring to attain. Checking something before it's done, knowing that was too soon, not trusting your instinct. I mean, we're just talking about, actually sort of archaic technology, because you'd think toasters would be perfect by now. I mean, I know someone who has an oven, a smart oven, where they can watch their food cooking from their phone while it's cooking, or their water boils in 30 seconds. So, technology in some way takes the romance out of the process of cooking or waiting or anticipation. But there really is, as you're saying, a story in everything. If you want to take a moment to examine it, all of the twists and turns, the ups and downs, the outcomes.
Do you think that there's more impactful stories connected to the topic of love just because there's more emotion infused in most situations?
I think I think love, when we take the idea of love and separate it from romance, or, right? Separate it from genre or rom-com or Hallmark, right? If we take love and think of it in terms of an experience, I think it's pretty universal. Of course, love expresses itself to everyone in a way that, fits for them, what they feel love is. But it's pretty universal. We all feel a lot better when we feel loved.
Hmm.
So that perfect piece of toast in that moment, no matter what else is going on, if the butter, the nooks, the crannies all works together, golden, if you like it that way. My grandmother used to like burnt toast that she would dip in her postum, which sounds awful, but she liked to have postum with milk and sugar and burn her toast and dunk it. And that to her was a good morning. There is some love. We can find love in these small moments, I think. Doesn't have to be the grand gesture,
Hmm. Can I share something with you?
please.
So, on a journey, and it was earlier this year, I'm working out at the gym and I'll put on different songs and I'm a geek about music. So, you never want to travel with me in the car because the music changes every zero point zero 0.04 seconds. And I put a song on, and the song is Touch Me by The Doors. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. But
Nope, haven't heard this one.
that was kind of a wake up moment for me. And here's why. I've always loved that song, and I've always connected it to a relationship. Um, and you know the lyrics now. I can't sing. Now I'm going to love you till the heavens stop the rain. I'm going to love you till the
Yeah.
stars fall from the sky for you and I. Can't you see that I'm not afraid? What was that promise that you made? And I had a reality check as I'm at the gym, and this is in the middle of the, wide open area, and I'm just, doing some reps. And I realized something. You know what that was, Michelle?
Hmm.
That song was for me, from me. I don't know if that makes sense, but self-love. You need to love yourself. You need before you can
Absolutely.
do anything else. And that was you do. You finally did it. You finally realized that you do love yourself. Okay. Took some time, took a journey, some challenges along the way. But that song,
Right.
when the lyrics played in my head, and I've heard it many times, and quite honestly, I could be with somebody else when I've heard that song. But it resonated at that moment that it was a song to me, from me, essentially, to say, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to love you till the heavens stop the rain. You got to love yourself before, you can
That's
embark in
beautiful.
any direction.
I think that's a beautiful moment. It's the world, something was aligning, excuse me, something was aligning. You needed to hear it, you needed to feel it in that moment. I think it's when we're all working out, we hope to have a moment where we feel like I love myself for this
Mm,
moment, for what I'm putting myself through. I
yeah,
hope,
for sure.
that
And you know
but
what?
it's definitely important.
I never thought of it that way, what you just said. And maybe that's because what are you doing when you're at the gym? Yeah, it's usually for self-improvement. Um, I never thought of that song presenting itself there at that moment. So, interesting connection that I never made. Thank you for that.
You made the connection because you told it as a story. That's the thing. So that's where this sort of power of storytelling comes in, is, if I give you a prompt in some way, like let's say the prompt for today is let's talk about love,
Hmm.
and we're saying love does not have to be the first time I saw, my partner was this magical moment, which sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. It's quite fun to revisit those stories. I had an interesting experience recently where I was contacted by a writer who's putting a book together about women who found love, like the love of their life, their love relationship over after 35. Because I guess there's something out there that said once they're 35 think they won't find someone.
Hmm.
And it can be any kind of relationship, right? But woman is the main, but any kind of relationship that you feel is your love relationship for your life. And so she was interviewing me about my partner who I met when I was 35 and he was 27. And I was telling her the whole story. And I had such a good feeling in my heart. I was telling the story. And then she said, well, what was the relationship before that? And I thought, oh, wow, I haven't really thought about that one in a while. And as I started to tell her the story of that relationship, I realized how much love was there in that relationship. And I also realized that I was the bad guy. I didn't realize that though. Before telling the story, I had always thought of it as like, oh, that's my ex, my ex fiance, my relationship in New York. Like I sort of contained it in this. Those were my 20s, I contained it in this certain way. But when I had some hindsight and I was telling it as a story under the umbrella of love, I realized I wasn't such a great person the whole time.
Hmm.
I wasn't an awful person. I wasn't awful. But this goes back to something you and I talked about, I think around Thanksgiving, this idea of the stories we tell ourselves, right? So I created a narrative of myself in that relationship that kind of fit what I needed to be able to move on in a way, like after the breakup. But now, almost 20 years later, I look back and I think, and I'm a better person now. I think I'm a better person in my relationship. And I look back and I think, huh, you weren't that great. You were good, but you weren't that great, and it actually kind of helped me a little bit. I forgave myself in a way
Hmm.
for that relationship not succeeding. And I would have loved to have called the person and say, hey, it was my fault, but we don't talk anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't, but it felt good. It felt good to come to that point. So again, like taking the time to tell a story, um, in some places they call it narrative therapy, and I'm not a huge fan of mixing, imposing therapy on your craft, like imposing therapy on your storytelling, if it's fiction or nonfiction. I think that sort of happens as a byproduct as it needs to, but there is something therapeutic about storytelling.
Well, look at the journal. It's been said that we all should be journaling so that our thoughts are out there, and we're not internalizing it. And what are you doing when you're journaling? Aren't you telling a story?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'm afraid to admit it, but I only just started journal. I've kept a gratitude journal for a while, but it's only been in the last. I want to be accurate here. Barely 6 months that I've been keeping just a general journal. Um, And, it's funny when you look back, you look at pages and pages of stories of your life.
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely. You can read your own book. It's basically like reading a book. Sometimes, so I keep journals, pretty regularly for a long time. And sometimes I'll go back to like, what was I doing Valentine's Day of 2012?
hmm,
And I go back and I look and and because there's so much distance at that point, it is like I'm reading a story. And in some ways, I might remember, oh, that's right, we were wherever we were. But there's definitely a lot of detail that I don't remember. I don't, you couldn't contain that much memory, once you're a certain age, it's hard to maintain that much memory, in detail. And so journaling definitely helps, again, always with the idea that you're not going to share it. It's not meant to be published.
hmm.
Um, whether that happens as a whole, it's out of your control. Um, it really should be for you, um, because ultimately you're working ideas out and you're processing. It's sort of actually the daytime version of what you and I were talking about when we were talking about the value of dreams. Like while you're dreaming, you're solving sort of problems or things that came up throughout the day that you maybe buried in your subconscious, or something came up and you're dreaming about them. And since we had our dream talk, by the way, I have been having more dreams. So I think our conversation must have shook something loose. But yeah, I think journaling is sort of like the daytime dream in a way. And even if you're just writing about what's happening right in front of you, there's some value in that, in the note taking, even in the pause.
The difference I find is that when you journal, there's less pressure because nobody's going to see it. And I'll admit, I'm pretty neat when I write. And in the beginning, I would intentionally be careful about how I wrote. Not crazy because nobody's going to see it in the journal. And now I'll be laying in bed. I can barely even see the page, and I just write. And I think to myself, well, you know what? In 10, 5 years, whatever, hope I can read that, but it doesn't matter because I let it out.
Yeah.
You purged it out there.
Yeah.
Um, Going back on the love platform.
Yeah.
Interesting how the stories we tell ourselves, the release of guilt. You were talking about the relationship, when you were in your 20s. Would it be impactful if somebody's in a situation like that to journal, to write a story about the relationship so they see it from a different angle and maybe some closure, some healing?
Well, you mean at the time that it's happening, or
Or
do you
even
mean
now,
later?
we carry stuff with us,
Yeah.
for decades.
Yeah, because I think that's sort of a two-hander right there, because writing about something while it's happening, can be biased or emotionally charged, or, it can fit. Sometimes we write the narrative that works for us to be able to get through a situation. Like
Hmm.
sometimes, there's a certain creation element happening, rather than more of like a pure documentarian kind of point of view, or if it's emotionally charged, it really depends on sort of your inner monologue, how that kind of works. Um, Not that that isn't valuable to read later. And then, later reflection is, hindsight is 2020. Reflection is a huge, huge advantage in terms of um, being able to heal in many ways, to reframe things, to take time. You're not under pressure in the same way. It's interesting. I'm actually working with a writer on her memoir, and she's reading journals of hers that she wrote during this period. I can't remember if I told you this or not, but during this period of time in her life that's the book is about, and it was very intense. But she was 14 years old, 14, 15 years old, and she's reading it now at 60, and she was like, oh my gosh, the things I was thinking, like, she's surprised in a way by the things that she was writing while it was happening as a teenager,
Mm.
whereas as an adult, of course, she can look back at this experience with so much more purview, of it. So, you know the caveat would always be, are you feeling like you're at a point in your life of stability or safety, or that you're not reawakening old wounds or trauma? There's always a something you have to just really take care of, like you were saying before. The self-love should come first, right? Caring for yourself should come first, so that when you revisit these things, in the writing, you feel like you can read them as a reader. You're not like inflicting the same pain on
Right.
yourself again.
You're not in it. You're not in the throw of the moment. And I guess we should mention, since we're talking about storytelling and love letters.
Hmm.
There's a whole other area there, and I think this is true for many different types of writing. But you're staring at the page, it's staring back at you. Well, if it's on your phone or on your desktop, the cursor is blinking. You don't know what to write. You go do laundry, go make toast, whatever it is. Um, but you want to write something, especially write that love letter. Any suggestions there on how to get that done?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an exercise called unsent letters,
Hmm.
and you can really use it for anything. Like, you can use it as a letter of grievance, anything. But the idea is that you without the write it. You don't ever have to send anything, right? You don't have to send it. So in the same way with your journal, just write it. Write everything you feel. Um, Go crazy, go corny, go how deep, go however you want. and let it sit for 24 hours
Hmm.
and then read it the next day and decide, like, how much of this do I really need to share? How much of this do I want to share? You might send the whole thing. You might be like, this is amazing. This feels exactly like what I wanted to share. And you share it. Or you say, I could probably pull back a little bit on my childhood. I don't need to share my own childhood or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what you sort of feel isn't necessary, but with anything, a letter of grievance, get it all out. That's emotion as well. That's strong emotion. Anger, all of these things are strong emotions. Love, write them. Write them. I came up with this meme myself the other day, which was don't rant about it, write about it. Like, just get it out and you'll feel a lot better mentally. You'll feel better. And then whatever it is you do decide to send, if you decide to send it, will have had a little bit of time still in your world before it's been shared.
That's great. Instead of a rant, write. Because and let's face it, when you're ranting about something, you're complaining about something, you've got a lot of conflict. And a lot of times that's in your mind. Things are bouncing back and forth. You don't have a clear read on things. And if you write it, albeit, some of the direction might be all over the road, like a car, but at least you have a starting point there. I think that's a great idea. And yes, wait 24 hours. Assumably, if it's Valentine's Day, you should have done this yesterday.
Exactly. But you know what? Here's the thing. People love to get, you know what? Why wouldn't you want to get something any day of the year that feels like an expression of love?
For sure.
Like there's Valentine's. So this could sort of back to this idea of like, what does this storytelling about love have to do with my business, for example? Like, what does this have to do with what I do for business? And, one thing, if you're trying to publish pieces to bring business towards you, or you want to do a promotion or whatever it is that you're communicating with your audience, there are calendar holidays throughout the year that we all, at least in the United States, celebrate in some way. And, write to them, write something to them, write something promotional or something that celebrates love for February 14th, or write something for Halloween. These are sort of business strategies that you can do throughout the year to change up the narrative of your business, right? Just enough for a day. Like, I had a thought about, some promotional idea for this other business for Valentine's Day, and I was kind of laughing at myself, like a 2-for-1, and then I realized that's not very good for the business. You can still do something where you acknowledge. It gives you a reason to communicate with people and to leave them with something positive.
That's a great point, especially if you're looking to do a post or just some content. There is always something going on. Like if you're at a point where, man, I want to write something, but I want it to have a more reason for being. People have invented a holiday every year, and it could be, National Cheese Sticks Day. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure there is one.
I betcha.
I'm sure there is one. If you look through there is some website, I can't remember, if you Google it, that has every day, pretty much every day of the year has something tagged to it. And wouldn't it be fun to actually find the ones that are less known so that you're reaching out? It just gives you a reason to reach your audience that isn't as salesy, that isn't like, hey, come check out come check out our closets, or come, check out my app. But it's actually like, hey, today is National Cheesesteak Day. What makes a great cheesesteak? And then, something like that. I can tell you a story about cheesesteaks. My family's from Philly. There's a way into cheesesteak.
Are you being serious?
Yeah, just like toast.
I didn't even know that.
Just like toast. Yeah,
That's so
just
funny.
like toast. I just wrote, I wrote a whole thing 2 years ago based on toast, but it's not about toast. But see, I brought up toast, and you had all these wonderful moments and memories and thoughts and
this morning
feelings about toast. Yeah,
Michelle, this morning I'm being very serious. I was toasting an English muffin, and I was having that moment where it's like, I do this pretty much every day, that, I can't wait for it to be done because I'm have things to do. And then once you pop it up, now you just blew the whole thing because now, it's on a cycle.
Really?
And to your point with the technology that we have, why isn't there some kind of photo cell, an eye or something that is examining the level of toast and then ejecting it when as opposed to it just being on a timer? I don't understand.
I know. And we're talking about going to Mars. So I think at some point we have to get this toast thing solved.
Yeah, we
Now,
have.
hopefully you and I will get a bunch of emails from people showing us where this actual brilliant toaster can be bought. If that toaster exists, someone please let Steve and me know.
Listen, somebody bought me a coffee maker for Christmas. It was like $150. I very much appreciate it, but it doesn't do a lot of things you would think it would do. Like it's 6 ounces, 8 ounces, 12 ounces. There's no 16 ounce. Well, I have 16-ounce cups. Well, how do I add more to it? Can I just press a button, wait for another few ounces, and then stop it? No, I can't. There's no 4 ounces to add to the 12. What the heck? Anyway, I should write it down. I'm ranting.
That you are, and that is a grievance that you could write and send to this company. I wouldn't send it to the person who gave you the gift. Let the person who gave you the gift think you love the gift.
Of course.
Back to the love idea. Send out the love. Thank you so much. Love coffee. Love the gift.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can send an email to whatever the business is, the manufacturer, and say, "Hey,
how did you mess that up?
16 ounces. Like, what are you doing?"
How did you mess that up? So what am I? And I do appreciate it, and it's way better than the one I had, which was getting older. But what am I supposed to do? Put it on 6 ounces and then wait for a certain number of ounces, call it 3 or 4 ounces to come out and then change cups and then catch the additional. I don't know. It just, like you said, Mars, and we can't get that done. I don't know. Something's not right. Wonderful talking with you. If somebody wants to really craft their storytelling in any area, and again, we always talk about the different areas where that can be, even your resume, even posts online, to do it right with direction and intention. How do we find you?
Yeah, I have a website, which is www, of course, .michellecutler.com. It's MICHELLECUTLER. And I think you lead in perfectly to a workshop I'm giving on the 22nd or 23rd of February, whatever the Sunday is,
Mm-hmm.
which is called the SEO of Me, basically the storytelling of SEO, using storytelling to strengthen your SEO. So it's really for people who have websites that they don't feel are functioning well, or who want to start a website, don't know how to start. Filling out the home page and the about page are daunting. And coming up with organic keywords based on your story, your narrative, your business, who you are as a brand, and how you can build that into the copy that's in your website so Google loves it.
It's a cliche, but content is king, and it really is now more than ever. SEO, 10 years ago or so used to be a lot about the tags and things like that, and backlinks. It is more now about the content, the amount of content and what you put in there. So what a great idea.
Exactly. It'll be fun.
Your website is your name, right?
Exactly. Michelle Cutler.
Wonderful talking with you, Michelle. Happy Valentine's Day again.
Thanks. You too.
And this podcast is now toast. So we'll catch up next time. Okay.
That's good.
Thanks.
Good luck tomorrow.
Well, thank you. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.